What's going on, everyone? Darkwater here, back in Parkitect, back in our unnamed park. One thing you might notice is this is actually sped up a little bit. Uh, Doing this as a voiceover rather than just making you guys watch this. Just because, well, a couple different reasons. I wanted to shorten the time a little bit, and one of the other things I was looking at was my not being very familiar with this ride. So I knew there was going to be kind of a lot of little toying around with it here and there to try and get it exactly how I want it, which I think I did in the end. But it did take quite a bit of work here and there to go through and edit both the water as well as some of the land and the targets that I end up adding in a little bit here. So this is still in the spooky portion of the park. Uh, this is our spooky swamp, and basically the boats are going to run through, and there's going to be little gravestones and different targets popping up that the uh, the folks can actually aim at. And so went through and initially kind of started to create the outline of it, but then decided to go ahead and just lay the track entirely and then go back and start to mess with the terrain a little bit. Um, Now, at one point, I do open up the park just to get people in on the rides, just because I didn't know necessarily if all the what the range is on the boats. You can see one of the boats coming by now, but didn't know exactly how far out the water cannons could actually fire. So a little bit of toying around with that, as well as just kind of get some people in the park so it has a little bit different feel than it normally does. So in this first section here, we're adding in some gravestones for people to shoot at on both sides, so that we've got a kind of a balance. I try and keep it balanced throughout the entire ride, so left side versus right side, there's enough targets on both sides for each of them. I do end up going back on that side that I'm working on there because it is too far for them to shoot. And so end up doing a little bit of movement there. Drop these trees in, the spooky trees that I do like the one with little birds on them or bats. I can't tell which one is that. I think it's birds. Um, but whenever I saw their mouths open, I'm like, oh, hey, I can fit a target in there, and so I go ahead and drop a couple targets in there to give the people to shoot at as well. I end up reworking that side that I'm currently on right now because that was also out of range. So that ends up getting reworked a little bit as well. But I do like how that turned out. So they are able to go through and actually shoot at those, and then trying to decide where else I'm gonna be putting them. I initially started by going through and actually reworking the train station and everything, or the train track a little bit further out. I think I tweaked that in the last episode as well, and that'll probably be where we go with the next episode after this one. Going to work on the haunted house on the hill that I kind of had going at the end of the last episode, as well as the train station and some more shops in that neck of the woods. As we're going through, probably also going to need to add a bathroom kind of in this middle section, so I might go back and rework it a little bit. Um, the targets only have specific heights on them, so the little skeleton that is in the ground actually has a target on its face, where the other ones are pretty close to their chest. But at this point, I think all of the targets are set. It's just kind of going through and adding a little bit more of the spooky props, and then going through and just kind of adding in a whole bunch of trees. So again, sticking a lot with the willow trees, changing heights, changing colors as well, just to kind of get some variation in here. Um, the bright green that you see on the very far right side of the screen, I'm not a big fan of. I think I do go through and end up changing those just because I thought they were just a little too bright. Um, but I do use a lot of the willow trees, and then there's the willow plants that I end up putting in there along with the lily pads, and I think I do some grasses in the water area as well, which really kind of pulls it all together. I don't know what I'm going to do with the queue area. I have it kind of meandering through the forest here, the swampy area, and so I'm kind of tempted to do just kind of a small little rundown, like a fishing shack, but only kind of where the actual entrance is to the ride. So that'll probably be something I take a look at doing in the next episode as well. Um, yeah, see, I started to take out some of the brighter green trees there, just because it just really didn't look that great with them. I go through and add some shrubs underneath just to kind of do some ground layer foliage in here and kind of spice things up a little bit. I go through and kind of tear out some of those trees, I believe, just to get some of the Q path in. Did not try to do it at night, so I may need to go back in and do a little bit of lighting, but I'm not sure on that. I didn't run the ride at night just to see how visible some of the stuff was. Uh, but yeah, we're doing all the foliage here. I also added some rocks and I think a log or two in here as well. Um, so yeah, just trying to create and isolate the ride a little bit. Yeah, so I was going through. I did find these little guys, so I decided to just kind of start dropping them in along the edges. Uh, Quite a few in some places, just to add a little bit of spice in here. And then around near the exit is where I end up doing a lot of the tall grass, and so it's kind of a swampy or grassy area over here. Here we go. I think I added in right about here. Um, I was actually looking for the lily pads, and I came across the idea of dropping in a bunch of grass, because I couldn't actually find out where the all the lily pads had disappeared to, but I eventually find them. Um, but I do go through and just kind of use some of the smaller patches of tall grass to just kind of weed it through this area. And then I do drop in the log and end up taking out one of my trees. And then I apparently I add in some of the dead trees as well, just here and there, just to add a little bit more texture, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily the word I want to use, but it's what I got tonight. Without fail, I do have to add in some rocks. I really like the texture and the shape of the rocks in this game. So that's probably part of the reason why I do use them quite a bit, but I think it also really fits in this. Going forward, I'm thinking can probably wrap up this within the next episode or two, and then we'll end up moving on to I think it's going to transition into the western area. So we'll probably do a mine train coaster, at least, and then see if what other kind of westerny rides we can actually get in here, and just trying to stick to some of the theming. Looking forward, I was going through some of the flat rides, and there are some that you might be able to explain into it, but there are others that just don't really fit, so might end up just using it and just kind of encasing it within basically a show building, for lack of a better term. Um, but just because it doesn't fit the aesthetic of the actual ride itself. So we do have a high rating, low nausea, obviously, but um, I was hoping that it would automatically spray if I just ran it as a test. But one of the other pieces of track is, I think it disables and enables where the passengers can actually begin shooting from, and that is added in there. But I think I added it incorrectly, which is why in a little bit you'll actually see me go back through the beginning portion of the ride to tweak it a little bit. I was checking to see if there's something other than tugboats, but just tugboats. So do there's the queue that we've got going. Again, just over the entrance to the actual ride portion, I think potentially looking at doing again just a kind of a small little shack. So here you can see some people rushing onto the ride because at the time that was the only ride that I had open. So did get an influx of people coming in. One of the other things that I decided to go with is more of a Disney Knott's Berry Universal Studios kind of idea of just having the park entrance fee being the uh, the high cost and just having all the rides free. Um, yeah, here's where I started messing around with the track builder, trying to figure out exactly how that worked. But I eventually take it all the way back and hook it back up, and it does eventually work here. Um, I add in one more over here, just thinking that maybe you need two, but that'll probably be something I mess around with down the road here. We do have a bunch of people coming in. Still not spraying. So I think I actually shut down the ride again, delete that section right there to hopefully fix it, and this I do believe does fix it. After this initial crush of people, uh, not a lot of people ended up riding this ride. I did turn down the amount of money. So here's they are spraying. Um, Here's where I was checking to make sure that they're able to hit all the targets. The top targets there, they were unable to hit. So those are the ones that I was going to have to go back through and re-edit that little section, and as well as the section up top here, because again they could reach the one that's lying down there on the far right, but not the other three. So I go back in real quick, re-edit these, move the gravestones forward, just trying to keep things balanced on both sides. Just because if you're set on one side of the ride, you want to make sure that you kind of get the same experience on both sides. Um, I like this a little bit more because one of the trees I had it uh, basically a 90-degree turn from the other one. So at this point, you can it lines up a little bit better that way. So we're putting the last three targets on. Now they should be able to hit all the targets if I recall. Um, oh, I end up moving this forward as well. an interesting little ride. Um, I would almost like to see one similar to this, but just not being boats, being able to do it as a land ride, more like Buzz Lightyear or the Astro Blasters at Disneyland, Disney World. That I think would be also something that would really be something neat into this game. This is just the initial game. I don't have the two expansion packs um, at this point, so just doing all this with just kind of the basic, no mods, no no extra uh, downloaded assets that other people have created. So at this point, it's fairly close to being done. Just a last minute check just to make sure that all the targets are being hit. And everything looks good here. So yeah, again, next time I think we're going to be looking at finishing up the other sides of the park. But until then, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here and hope you guys have a fantastic day.